Okay, so first of all, there is a correction, minor correction in one of the slide that I projected on the other day, and that is this cancellation that I did here. The actual cancellation is this, and it's not this one. So end result remains the same. But it's just that in hurry I sketched the wrong ones. Anyway, so so we learned about the structural equivalence and the regular equivalence in networks. So you can take the pairs of nodes and look at the similarities among nodes. And this has a huge application in various fields. So if you have citation network, you want to look at the similarities between authors or papers or documents. If you are having an e-commerce network, then you look at the similarities between customers or similarities of the products that our customer likes, and so on. In biology, we look at the functions of proteins. If the given set of proteins have similar functions in the network. So we will move on, and based on this similarity, we can actually think of the large scale organization of the network, that similar nodes would tend to cluster together, right? So in one of the class, we learned about the homophily in terms of social network. So basically this was likes, right? So similar attributes, people with similar attributes clustered together in the social network. So we call it as homophily, and if it is not so, then we call it as heterophily, where similar people look at tends to cluster with the contrasting traits. So we also call it as assortivity in network science, assortativity, right? So for example, if you move on from if you look at the social network, so one of the best example of assortativity, so is the um, male females, right? So you can have a separate cluster of females and a separate cluster of males, large clusters. So you can have all the nodes here which are male, and there could be dense connection among them. Now you might wonder that it may not be true in many societies where females tends to interact with males. Okay, but let's say in a typical Indian community of the, let's say, couple of decades ago, this was very common that females clustered together and males clustered together. But it may not be a good example because there is a relationship between males and females which is strictly heterophilic, which is the sexual context, right? So sexual context in social networks is example of heterophily. Okay, males and females interact together in social contact network. You can think of any other example. People from similar community cluster together, similar religion will cluster together, similar race would cluster together, white people are clustering together, black clustering together. There are a number of examples in the social network where we see the homophily, and then there will be a weak connections across clusters, right? So if we can have a class data, okay, certain classes, and that class could be either binary like male, female. It could be, one example could be religion, 7, 8 religions, and so on. And or you can think of the different age groups, okay, young, olds, uh, and juvenile, and so on. You can have a class data, various classes, and then you can look at whether you have more edges within the same class or not in order to get a measure of assortativity, right? So in terms of adjacency matrix, how can we get the total number of edges between same types of nodes? Okay, and we can first start with defining what is type or what is class. Let's say I denote class with C. So Ci would be the class of node I, right? And likewise, I can say Cj is the class of node J. Okay, class could be anything, male, females, or various kind of groups, various kind of batches. Let's say uh, first year, second year, third year, fourth year of ISO Mohali, and so on. Right? Various batches. So, given these two classes, not two classes, the class variable is just one thing, and there could be n number of different classes. C could vary from 1 to n, right? C could vary from 1 to n. There could be only one class in simplest scenario, then we generally don't look at any. Ideally, this should be starting from 2 to make sense, right? 2 classes, 3 classes, 4 classes. But we write Ci, Cj because we are looking at the interaction between I and j, right? So Ci is the class of node I, whatever is the class, and Cj is the class of node j. Now the idea is to find out the edges or interactions between nodes of same class, right? So how can we express that in terms of Ci, Cj and in terms of matrix, adjacency matrix? So I think one could write it in the following form. See the total edges, right? How many total edges are there, first of all? So we know that the total edges are given by, or total edge ends, or double or 2 times of total edges are given by the sum of the degrees. This is also sum of the degrees, right? Sum of the degrees, right? So, and this times when we have interaction between similar kind of nodes, same type of nodes, and that can be given by a Kronecker delta function of Ci and Cj, right? Now, of course, this quantity is since we are working with the undirected network, we are counting everything twice, so one can write 1/2 here, right? Now, what is this here? First of all, we are looking at the total connections here, right? Total connections, and we are filtering. We are looking at whether we have connections between same kind of. Now, Kronecker delta function is given by any two quantities, two variables x and y. Is given by, it's one of the simplest function, right? It's given by 1 if x is equal to y, 0 otherwise. This is called Kronecker delta function, which is telling that if these two quantities are same, then the value of this function is 1, otherwise 0. So in this scenario, if the class is same, which means Ci is equal to Cj, then delta takes the value 1. And then only this count will be meaningful, right? Otherwise, everything becomes 0, right? So by this, we can find out how often Ci is equal to Cj, which means that the node I and node j was having same class. Both of them were males or both of them were females in case of binary classification, isn't it? So we can count. So this is what did we count here? We counted the number of edges between between nodes of same class. And to be very precise, this is observed number of edges, right? Okay, so if we now have expression for the observed number of edges between nodes of same class, then what we need now is the normalization of this expression by the expected number of edges between nodes of same class. Okay, how can we do that? So now the question is, can we get same thing? Expected number of edges between nodes of same class. So, okay, so 1 by 2. Now the question is, how do we get that? So we need to find out. So here we had aij, which is binary 1 or 0, right? But this is the observed connection, right? The connection is observed between I and j, then the value is 1 or 0. This is the observation. We can try to find out if it is possible to get the expected number of edges between two nodes I and j. Now you might say that at most the edge could be 1 or 0. Why did I say expected number of edges between node I and j? The reason is that theoretically we can get any number, right? Expected number could be, for example, mean. If you take mean number of all the connections, then it could be anything 0.5 or 0.8 or anything, right? So mean doesn't converge to, even for the binary numbers, mean could be non-binary also, right? So expected number is same thing, it's like a mean thing. So what we are interested here is for k, for node I, okay, what is the probability that a edge starting from node I will end up with a node j, with the end of the node j? Okay, so now we know there are n other nodes here. Okay, so what is the possibility, or vice versa, if a connection is starting from node j and it is ending up with node I, what is the probability that it will happen for any one connection? Is that what is the, for in case of I, it will depend on what was the degree, what are the total edges available to us. The total edges available for this particular connection that I draw is kj, right? Out of how many possibilities, how many edge ends are there in this network? We are not talking about nodes now. In the earlier example, where we looked at the common neighbors of two nodes, we looked at, where is that? Yeah, here. This scenario was different. We looked at the, sorry, we looked at the common neighbor in between, right? So we were talking about n. Right now, we are talking about this direct edge. Okay, that's the difference. So we are talking about edge right now in the present example. So kj possibility that it will end up to j, this connection will end up to j. Out of how many total possibilities? It is 2m. Total edge ends, right? So there is an edge end here, edge end here. There could be multiple edge ends here. This is 1, 2, 3, 4 edge ends here, right? And 1 here, and so on. The total edge ends would be 2m, right? And this is for one connection. So we need to look at how many total connections I was having. So that was ki. So this is the expected number of edges between node I and node j. Okay. So instead of aij, we can write this quantity here, which will be ki kj by 2m delta of ci and cj. Now we have to subtract this quantity from the observed one, right? So that's our final or pre-final measure of assortivity coefficient. Okay, that's given by, so this is assortivity coefficient given by Q. This is observed minus expected. So the observed value was 1 by 2. Now, the best thing is instead of giving the numbers, we can now write the fraction of total edges. The total edges were M. Okay, and this is, anyway, this is, we didn't count it twice because this is 1 by 2. So we will not take 2M now. We can divide whole of this by M to get the fraction of edges between nodes of same type. So this becomes 1 by 2M here, and rest of the expression remains same. Minus the expected value, which is again 1 by 2M, fraction of edges. Right, so now we need to simplify this. So we need to take the common things outside. So what is common here? Okay, so first of all, this is common. Right? This quantity is common. And then this quantity is also common. We can take the summation out also. So this becomes 1 by 2M summation over ij, and in bracket we got aij minus kijk by 2M. And what is this? This is basically observed minus expected number of connection between node I and j, right? And this delta is outside. So this is the equation for assortivity coefficient. Now here, this itself makes a matrix. Let me highlight that. This part itself is a matrix which is known as modularity matrix. Okay, it will again appear sometime later in this course. And generally this is given by B. So you can write Bij instead here. Okay. So this is the assortivity coefficient by which you can find out what is the expected number, what is the tendency of similar nodes to cluster together. Now, how do you know whether this value is high or low? Okay, so sometimes what people do is to really find out how close this is to the maximal possible value of assortivity coefficient, they also divide it by the max possible Q. So, max possible Q. So how do you think we can calculate maximal possible value of Q? When will be the Q maximal in this expression? If you look at the whole of this expression, you can start from here. And when do you think that the expression will give the maximal Q value? You can also look at here first in this diagram. When will the assortivity coefficient will be maximal? The scenario might be very unlikely, but theoretically we can get that. Well, you can say that whenever there is an edge, okay, then the delta, canonical delta is 1. Okay, whenever the edge value is 1, which is aij, whenever the value of aij is 1, which means there is an edge between I and j, then the canonical delta is 1. That's the best case scenario, right? So if you do so, then what happens? What will be the expression here? 1 by 2 summation. And this becomes 1, right? Anybody, what will be the expression? This expression becomes So of course 1 by 2 m outside. So I'm adding m from here. Okay. And then anybody? This becomes 1, right? So this is nothing but sum of all the edges, sum of the all degrees, this thing. Because this is 1, whenever aij is 1, this is 1, so this becomes irrelevant. So this becomes 2m here. So I'm not cancelling this here. You can say that, well, I can just cancel it here. I'm not cancelling it here for obvious reason that I will get expression which will look like similar to this one. So now if you put this thing here, open this up, and what do you get then? So this max q will be equal to 1 by 2m. So this expression should look like somewhat this one. And summation is gone now, right? Because we can take the summation inside. Once I convert this to 2m, this summation, all of this 2m, then I need to write summation inside now. This summation is going inside. Okay, so that will be your max possible value. So what you do, you take this expression and divide by this expression. So that's your normalized by max possible value. So this is your expression normalized by the max possible value. So that when you look at the magnitude of this value, you can interpret it how far it is from the max possible value. So that you can say whether the assortivity is high or low with some kind of reference, right? Okay, so this was the class data, right? So we worked with the class data. You see, this is the class data. But you may also have a scenario where you do not have class data, but instead you have scalar data. Any example of scalar data based on which we can look at the assortivity? I think I discussed that briefly in the last class. Well, you can look at the age. Let's say in a social network, you can look at the age of node I and age of node J and see if there is a clustering, if there is a positive correlation here that the load, so the younger people are interacting with each other and older people are interacting. So this will be the old people over here, right? And then the young people over here and the kids will be here. If you get the positive correlation, so the thing is that J and I are interacting, then only you make this plot, right? So now the question is, how can I find out if this is true? And the network is actually associative based on age. So likewise, you can try to find out if high scoring students are interacting together and low scoring students are interacting together. If there is a negative correlation, then we call that it is not associative, it is disassociative. How can we measure this? What is the easiest way? What is the straightforward way? We already discussed this once. Well, you have two vectors, right? So the kind of data that you have is the age of node I, and the second vector is age of node J. And you have age here, right? And age here. And they are also interacting with each other, right? So you have two vectors now. The moment you have two vectors, you have those measures with you like covariance, right? So covariance, let us say age I call xi and this one I call xj. So vector, sorry, this is vector. So I need to write in bold. Lowercase but in bold are the vectors, right? And you recall the equation from the last class, right? Okay, now let us expand this. Expected value, which means that the total n in this case, since we are looking at edges, the length of this vector would be what? Will it be n? What will be the length of this vector? All pairwise interactions. Well, how many pairwise interaction do we have in the network? 2m. How many edges do we have? Edge ends 2m, right? So 1 by 2m. Because everything will be doubled here. So it has to be 2m. Okay, and so this is n. So when we take the expected value, we take 1 by n. So n in this case is 2m, and then summation over all the edge ends, all the edges. So that is aij summation over ij for all the connections times xi xj. Even in the scalar form, you know this form of the covariance, right? And expected value of xi times expected value of xj. Okay, let's take something common here. 1 by 2m is common, but one of these is left, right? So this is common, but one will be left inside, but we'll take care of that. Okay, now what is this? What is this here? And what is this here? Sleeping. Well, this ki or kj, whatever you call it, kj and ki, right? So 1 by 2m, one of them is gone. So what is left here is ki, kj by 2m, because one of them is left, right? So by 2m times xi, xj. Okay, now we can take xij common. So you can see where we are leading to. Take the summation outside too. Now, what you see interestingly is this equation is very similar to this equation that we had here. this equation, right? Now I have extra color, blue one. So I'm boxing this in blue color. This equation in blue box is similar to what I just draw on the next page, except that we do not have delta function and instead we have product of xi and xj. Right? Okay, now tell me if I want to normalize this by the max possible value q. Okay, this is what the q is, right? What will be the max possible value if I want to divide it by max q? Well, max possible value would be when xi is equal to xj. So you basically in this equation, you will have xi square here. Xi square, that will be the max value. If you wish to divide it by that value, you can do that by putting xi is equal to xj. All right, so this was based on scalar data, okay? And if this value is high, it means the network is assortative. And then you also have a grade, how assortative it is. Okay? Now, one of the things that you need to remember, you need to focus upon now is the very special case of scalar assortivity, and that is called as degree assortivity. Assortativity. Which means in this equation, we can basically put, instead of having age of the node I and j or credit score of node I and j, I say that the degree of node I and j. So you can have another assortivity which is now topological in nature. Instead of taking the secondary attribute, this is the secondary attribute of node, right? This is, we looked at non-topological attribute of a node. What is your credit score? What is your age? And so on. So that's not the topological attribute of a node. We can take the degree instead. What was the degree here? What was the degree here? What was the degree here? And the interacting partners. And then it tells you about the topological assortivity in terms of not the secondary attribute, in terms of the structural attributes of the network. So equation is simple. Everything else remains same. So you say QD based on the degree. So everything else remains same. Oh, sorry, this was 2m here. There was a mistake. Everything else remains same. But in the end, we have Ki and Kj. Now, why this is important? So what does it tell you, the degree of assortivity? It tells you that the high degree nodes are interacting with each other and low degree nodes are interacting with each other. So just think about this. I can put Kj here and Ki here. It tells you that if there is a positive correlation, it tells you that high degree nodes are together and low degree nodes are together, right? If it is not so, then you will get the negative correlation. Right? So let's see here. So in case of assortivity, if you plot Ki versus Kj, you will get the positive correlation if it is assortative. And if it is disassortative, then you will get a negative correlation. Or in some cases where you have mixed kind of representation, you will have no correlation overall, but you can, which means that the overall correlation is negative, but you can have separate population. For example, you can have a population which is correlated. There could be small population which is correlated in a plot here, and then there are other population here and here which are not correlated. So the on an average it will show no correlation, but there is a dichotomy, right? So we have two populations, not correlated, sorry, correlated and not correlated. So many of the biological networks falls in this category, and real world networks, and in this category, sorry, this category. One or two examples we will discuss about this one also. So let me first show how does the topology look like for the assortative and disassociative networks. So here are the examples. So the assortative network would look like this one. Sorry, disassociative. So this is disassociative one. So what you see here is you have high degree node here, right? It is interacting with the low degree, isn't it? Everywhere, high degree node, low degree node, high degree node, low degree node. And low degree nodes are not interacting. There is no interaction here. So high to low is the connection that is disassociative, right? Assortative here, you see that first of all, low degree nodes are interacting with the low degree nodes, right? Low degree nodes, and so on. If you go inside, you will find that the high degree nodes are interacting with each other. Maybe this one is one, and then going here, two hubs are interacting. And likewise, they are assorted based on degree. High degree nodes are together, low degree nodes are together, and then medium degree nodes are together. There's a whole assortment based on the degree. And this is a slightly bigger version of the same of assortative and disassociative network. As I said that the real world networks are not very strict in this sense, but there are examples. For example, I'll show you the example. Now this example is for the internet. This is for internet network. What you see here is that this is disassociative, right? So this is a heat map. So high value is here, which tells you that you have a high value means you have more points here. So this is a density map basically instead of scatter plot. Simply telling that there are more points here. When you look at the degree of, this is Ki and Kj, more points here which are not correlated, which is telling that low Ki is interacting with high Kj and vice versa. And this is all empty here. This is the internet network, and that will look like this network, right? Internet network. Right. This example is for, this is the example of authors, co-author network. Co-author network, it is highly assortative. It's telling that there is a lobby of authors who are co-writing papers together. Okay, and these are the big shots in a field. A top scientist in a particular field writing research paper with a tight collaboration with other top scientists and so on, and more often they write papers together. And then there is a small scale collaborations over here. And this network is assortative. Now here is the protein-protein interaction, network. You see dichotomy now. There's a one population here and the other population is here. Okay, so some part of the network is assortative while other part is disassortative. And this is the example of genetic interaction network. This is also, again, you see one population here and then other population. Genetic interaction means when you co-delete two genes together, they show the lethality in a system. Then we call that there is a genetic interaction between two genes. This is the example of metabolic network. Again, you see dichotomy there. So the biological network seems to have dichotomy. This network, I forgot which network. Let me recall. I just don't recall. I'm sorry about that. I don't recall what is this network, but this was also a kind of biological network, and you see dichotomy. So, in general, most of the biological networks, molecular networks in biology, are showing a dichotomy. And then we briefly showed you two example of highly disassortative. This is disassortative. Okay, this is assortative. Okay, so these maps, these scatter plot maps, or density plot map, contour density plot maps of Ki versus Kj can be used as a diagnosis plot to find out whether your network is assortative or disassortative. And I'll just show you how do they look like, the dichotomy, how does it look like. Now here is the example of a disassortative network where you have high degree nodes are interacting with the low degree nodes, right? So the high degree nodes and the low degree nodes are interacting and so on. This is the example of assortative. This is assortative. This is disassortative. And you see all the hubs are interacting together inside, and the low degree nodes are interacting with low degree. This is somewhat in between, where you see that some of the hubs are interacting. This is the hub here, hub is interacting here, right? And you also have low degree interactions over here. That's the dichotomous topology of the network, which is mostly the biological networks. Now that also reminds me that sometimes in a large disassortative network, you can also have a rich club. You remember I mentioned about rich club in one of the class in which we learned about VIP club. So you can have hubs. Okay, so there are hubs. And these hubs are making a club with interacting with each other. Well, you will say this is assortative then. Well, no, you see that there are a lot of these low degree nodes interacting with high degree. These are not actually assortative, and these are largely disassortative. Okay, largely disassortative, but somewhere in the core of the network, hubs are interacting, certain hubs, maybe 10 hubs, 20 hubs, 30 hubs, depending on the size of the network. Certain hubs in the core of the networks are interacting together. We call it as rich club. Okay. So there are ways to actually quantitate this property in a large disassortative network. Is there any rich club? And if there is a rich club, what could be the function of that rich club? Well, what you can do is you can calculate something called rich club coefficient. Rich club coefficient. So this is very similar to you remember we discussed about density of a network, and that was given by the total number of edges in a network divided by 1/2 total number of expected edges in a network, which is given by number of nodes, half of number of nodes times n-1, right? This is the same thing, handshake thing here. And we call it as density of a network, right? Now you can use the same thing for the rich club coefficient. Let's say Q is given by, so now you can take this 2 here in a numerator. So write 2E. And you only look for the edges between the nodes with certain degree cutoff. Okay, that's the only difference I'm making here. And that cutoff could be anything for you. It could be, let's say, I'm looking for nodes which are having at least 100 interactions. Okay, then your K is 100, and you calculate this coefficient only for the nodes with high degree. The best way is to actually calculate from low degree to high degree, get the whole grade from 1 to n degree, right? This is the Ki, and make a plot. So for all the degree K, you need to make a plot, basically. K here and Q, various degrees of the nodes in this equation. okay, and corresponding coefficient value. How does it look like? Now, how you might say that, how do we say Q is high or low? Maybe if I say Q is high, then that much Q is anyway expected in a random network, right? So what you do, you actually randomize the network. So the correct coefficient is given by Q observed divided by Q randomly expected, a random or expected one, right? And this value can be calculated by randomizing the network. Now you might say, if I randomize the network, then I'm going to disrupt the topology. Let's say your network was scale free. Now I tell you to randomize the network. You might, randomization means rewiring. If I rewire, the network becomes a adversarial network or a random network. Well, no, you do the randomization or rewiring in a controlled manner. For example, the popular way is to swap the edges. Let's say you randomly take two edges, one edge and another edge in a network, and swap their partner. Now A will interact with Y and X will interact with B. So this is the rewiring we do. So if you swap the edges in this manner, swap the partners in the edges, in the selected edges in this manner, you will not touch the degree, right? A will still have the same degree. In this case, A was having, K was 1 for A, K remains 1 here for A, and same is true for all the other ones. Likewise, if you have multiple connections, you deal with them independently, so the degree distribution doesn't change. It's only the structure which is changing. So if you plot the degree distribution after rewiring, you still get the power law, but the connections are swapped, all right? So by doing so, you can actually calculate this normalized version of coefficient. This is normalized version of Rich club coefficient. And if these two quantities are same, if these two quantities are equal, then you will see that a straight line here, right? There is no correlation with degree. Now, Rich club will be identified if you start seeing that, oh, after certain degree, you see deviation here. Okay, let's say this was K is equal to 100. So before this value of K, you had observed and expected value same. So the value was around 1 here. Okay. The moment you looked at the hubs which were having at least 100 interaction, you see a rich club here coming up, because now the value is deviating from 1, right? So this can be used as a diagnosis plot for rich club. Now, and depending on your hypothesis and the system, you can interpret what is the function of that rich club. What were the hubs? What were the proteins in a protein-protein interaction network which is making this hub, right? So, or any system. If in social network you find out who are the nodes, okay, and why are they interacting? What could be the functional relevance? Now, in terms of robustness, what do you think the rich club would do? Let's say you have a rich club in a power law network. What is the advantage of rich club in general sense, in terms of robustness? Anybody? Well, in the power law network, you learn that the hubs are rarer, and which ascribes the robustness to the network, so to the random error. So likewise, now we have all those hubs are actually now hiding in the core in somewhere in the network. So this becomes even more robust now to the random errors, right? However, if you touch the core now, so this is becoming more susceptible to targeted attack. Okay? So now all the hubs are actually protected somewhere in the network. So now until you touch this core, network remains highly robust, right? So this can escalate the robustness topologically. However, the rich clubs should be interpreted with cautions given the system. Okay, you need to look at what is the functional advantage of these rich clubs. Okay, so if there are genes coming together in nuclear space, okay, so why are they coming together? There might be some advantage. So one should look into the underlying significance, functional significance of things converging at one place. Okay, so I'm done for the day, and in the next class we will look at the modules. We will look at the graph partitioning. How do we partition graphs to identify the modules, various modules in the network, and that's very important to know what all modules are existing, so that one can look at the function of those modules. All right, so we'll stop here. If there is any question, we can discuss. Anybody?